Hey, Peyton and Andrew. I hope y'all are doing well and having a nice Easter. It is Easter Sunday that I'm finally recording this. But I just wanted to touch base about the last assignment coming up. Y'all just did a great job on the third instructional activity. I graded it and sent y'all your feedback. And I think y'all are caught up with the quizzes. Yes, y'all are caught up with all the quizzes. There were only four. You are both caught up. I just checked to make sure. The nice thing, I guess, about this textbook is that we can cover the textbook and still have time for a little bit of extra information. In 420 that I'm teaching this semester, there are more chapters than there are weeks in the semester. So that's a struggle. But anyway, so all that's left is I did just grade your Flipgrid post as well. Apparently, I maybe forgot about it. My bad. But I think I'm caught up with everything else. I will double check to make sure I've graded your principles of effective instruction and your high leverage practices. The feedback for the graphic organizers, and I think Andrew, you might get some feedback that you're like, what is she talking about, Venn diagrams? I tried to do like private comments, but then I'm not sure if it worked or not. So, Andrew, if you see something about Venn diagrams, just know that I watched Peyton's and that was a comment to her. So, I'm glad that y'all know each other so you can talk about how crazy I am. But anyway, so what I did, I added Universal Design for Learning and ADHD PowerPoints. Hopefully you have heard about these two, topics in some of your other classes, but I did just want to put these PowerPoints up here just to make sure. So there's a UDL PowerPoint and an ADHD PowerPoint. This ADHD one is from a textbook that I used a couple years ago for Education 420, I believe. So if you happen to look at the bottom and you're like, what? It is definitely from a different textbook that I used a while ago. This UDL PowerPoint, I just want to show you really quickly. Hopefully you're, like I said, a little familiar with Universal Design for Learning. So that is, and I'm going to skip ahead for just a second and then I'll come back. So Universal Design for Learning. Hold on, I'm missing some things. Oh, gracious day, that's not what I meant to do, but that's all right. All right, is where we're talking about, I know it's cut off, y'all. I'm sorry. Hold on. Okay, where we're talking about multiple means of representation, multiple means of engagement, and multiple means of expression. So this means representation. How are you going to present the content, right? As a teacher, are you going to use lecture? Are you going to use textbooks? Are you going to use podcasts or video clips or YouTube videos or something like that? That could be some examples for multiple means of representation. Okay, multiple means of engagement. How are you going to keep students engaged? Well, maybe thinking about their interests, right? If you can use their interests in what you're talking about, attention getters, things like that, anything that'll get them engaged, allowing them to have some choice, whether they maybe work with a partner or a small group, or maybe they work by themselves, or maybe they stand up while they're working. Whatever you can do to engage your students. And it will be different for every student, every class, as your years go on, you're going to realize, okay, well, this worked for this group or this particular student, but it might not work this year. All right. And then multiple means of expression. How are you going to allow your students to show you what they know? So maybe they could draw a picture. Maybe they could, Andrew, I know you talked about cartoon strip or comic strips in your instructional activity. Well, maybe they could draw a comic strip, right? I am a terrible artist, so that would be a terrible, terrible thing for me. That would not be my choice or my preferred way to show you, show the teacher what I know. But so think about, will you accept written responses? When it's written responses, do they need to write in paragraphs? Can they do bullet points? Will you accept, verbal responses or typewritten, handwritten, small group presentations, any things that you can think of for your students to show you what they know. Okay, so let me just go back really quickly. So in this UDL PowerPoint, the first few slides are actually kind of go hand in hand with ADHD. So that's why I posted both PowerPoints. So just thinking about ways to include students in general education, ways to increase attention of your students, ways to improve organization, especially for your students with maybe learning disabilities or ADHD. They're going to struggle with organization. So you may actually want to, if you actually look at these PowerPoints, you might want to look at the ADHD one first and then come back to the universal design for learning. All right, what are some ways to improve listening skills? And these are really for all students, right? I mean, especially for students with ADHD, let's say, but these tips will help with all your students. Okay, and then provide opportunities for moving. All right, so then talking about UDL, I did take it from a different textbook, and I just wanted to again give credit. So it's from the textbook Teaching Students with High Incidence Disabilities by Mary Ann Prater. Okay, so I just wanted to throw that out there. So universal design for learning. Universal design, if you take the words learning out or for learning out, it is systems that consider and are designed from the beginning to be accessible to the broadest range of individuals possible. So if you're thinking about, if you're walking or out on the sidewalk and there's those curb cuts for individuals in wheelchair, that's an example of universal design. Okay, not the learning. Automatic doors, for individuals in wheelchairs who can hit the button and then the doors open. That's an example of universal design. Okay, so universal design for learning has been considered a pre-referral or a preventative approach, really a whole school approach that's providing good, high quality instruction and using flexible, like I just said, multiple means of engagement, expression, and representation. If you want to watch any of these videos, just go to the PowerPoint that's posted, not this recording, go to the actual PowerPoint and put it in, not slideshow view, just look at the PowerPoints and you should be able to see the slides. Okay. So here are the links. So here are some examples that I really like. If you only watch one of these, this one on the bottom, nope, I lied. This one, now I'm all confused. One of them shows, it might actually be, I think it is this bottom one. It shows a, I don't know, middle or secondary teacher providing her students with options. They're still working on the same content, but she's giving them different ways to get that content. So I thought she did a really great job in that video, which is why I include it. And then there's one other video right here if you want to watch that. This is an actual first grade math class showing UDL in practice. So again, UDL, multiple means of representation. How are you going to present the content? Multiple means of engagement. How are you going to engage the students? And multiple means of expression. How will you allow them to accept, or how will you accept responses to allow them to show you what they know? All right, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk about your final assignment. All right, so I'm back just to make sure. So what I just showed you is posted under the content tab. And if you go, hold on. So if you go to the content tab, so right here, UDL and ADHD PowerPoints. Okay, so those are posted right there for you. And then your fourth instructional activity is still found right here. So if you just go down to fourth instructional activity, this is where you will submit. You've done the first, the second, and the third ones already. So you'll go to the fourth instructional activity. And this is pretty much, well, it is exactly the same as your other activities that you've done. The only difference is that you will include some type of universal design for learning component within this instructional activity. Okay, so thinking about how you can incorporate UDL into your fourth instructional activity. Make sure you are clear about that in your YouTube link and say, oh, for universal design for learning, I could blah, 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 or I could da, 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 right? Just so I know that you know some ways to incorporate universal design for learning components into your activities. Okay, again, you don't have to submit a lesson plan. You don't have to do anything else different. Again, the only thing is you will include and be specific about what you're including, right? Again, so I know what you're talking about. So you will include some type of universal design for learning component within this instructional activity. That's the only difference. Okay, and then this is due next week, and this is your last assignment. Everything else you're caught up with. So just make sure to get this done by next Monday. And that's it. I hope y'all had a great semester in your other classes. And in this class, hopefully you learned something, one or two things maybe. And have a great summer and good luck whenever y'all are student teaching.